Jerry Jones seems open to making a big trade before the deadline. We're going to tell you why they shouldn't do that next.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. He is Landon McCool. And on today's show, we are answering your Twitter questions, and we got a bunch of them. And our first one comes from Colin, and he wants to know, if it was up to you two, would you rather keep your guys that you have right now on the roster and draft heavy on defense in 2026 while also finding a new defensive coordinator? Or, Landon, would you prefer to trade for a few players on defense before the deadline and keep Matt Eberflus around so you can keep some continuity?
Now, of course, I'm going to say that the context and the specifics here matter, but I think generally speaking, I think I'm still with one, right? Because to me, you and I have talked about this a lot. It's like, is the juice worth the squeeze here on a trade? And I think that's where the particulars here matter, right? What's the trade? What are we giving up? Who's the player? What's the contract situation? And it all kind of matters, because where I'm concerned is that I don't want to throw off the timeline of this team any more than it's been thrown off. The one thing that we feel like the Micah Parsons situation did more than anything is it kind of pushed the window a little bit of where this team is, right? Like it took a step back in talent, obviously, when you lost Micah Parsons, with the very distinct, obvious, return coming in the next two drafts. So you don't necessarily want to throw off the rhythm of it by just like trading some spots here and there to try to get better for this year. I think you've got a real serious window based on the things that you have on this team long term, like how you feel about the head coach, how you feel about the play calling structure right now, how you feel about where Dak's playing and the passing attack, like, and then they having a young offensive line. I think it all really lines up for, if you can get a new defensive coordinator next year, draft heavily on defense, go into free agency with some money and spend a little bit of money on defense. Turning around a defense is really not that difficult, and we don't have to go very far. It's a lot easier for me to be sold that the window is in 2026 and that we should save the resources for that than helping me believe that you can use some of those resources on a more short-term solution and think that this is going to turn around with maybe adding a player or two. I just don't. I think it's harder for me to believe that timeline versus, hey, we've got some long-term stuff here that we've got in place. We can fix the defense in an offseason, but let's not try to waste all these assets trying to get it done too soon.
Now, we should mention, like, if they're going to trade like a 5th or 6th round pick for a linebacker, exactly. Like that's different. Like, I know our guy John Owning has been saying Demario Davis, who's in New Orleans, like that's totally different. What we're talking about is giving up like 1st and 2nd round pick for defensive help. And while I do think those guys could come in and help right away, I don't think they need to do that, because number one, this draft coming up has a lot of really good defensive talent. And number two, you talked about the window, Landon, here. Like, they are clearly setting themselves up to make a run in 2026 and 2027 and really 2028 as well, because almost all of your offense is locked up for the next 4 seasons. Don't try to microwave this and be competitive and try to go out and, be better than what you maybe think you really are this year, because I don't see that happening.
Yeah, it's a risk versus reward thing, right? It's like that those picks could really be valuable by the time you need them if you can, just change the framing of this defense, change the structure around it. Don't, get impatient and blow up the what's, now seems kind of like a steady pointing towards 2026 with, trying to get better quick. It's not that I'm saying give up on the season necessarily. I just think that you're not necessarily in the same sense that you wouldn't necessarily trade your first round pick, even if you didn't have 2 first round picks.
No,
like I think you don't just want to give up those future assets unless you feel like you're close, and this is taking you over the top. And even then, it's still, risking the future for short-term gain. So I still think a trade that you can get somebody who can come in here and be a cornerstone piece for the next few years, that makes sense. And that can help you right away in this season. But I'm not interested in these situations where you're trading a second-round pick for a 34-year-old player that's really, really, really good, but maybe on the last year of an expiring deal.
Yeah, no thanks. Or even someone like Trey Hendrickson, who's still playing really well. Hendrickson, I believe, is 31 right now, but he's on the last year of his deal. You're going to have to pay him next offseason. I think as we get further into the season, that just move makes less and less sense for Dallas. But you mentioned how fast you can turn things around on defense. I think the best example of that are the Atlanta Falcons this year. Last year, they were 24th, I believe, in yards per game. Right now, through 6 weeks, they're number 1. What did they do in the draft last year? They drafted 2 pass rushers, Jalen Walker and James Pierce. Now, those guys are a part of the change, the turnover on defense, but it's just they've gotten a lot younger, a lot more athletic. That's what you're hoping the Cowboys can do in this situation as well.
Yeah, and they're just the latest in the long line of examples of teams. Defense is a very volatile side of the football, right? Like we talked about it all the time, that it's hard to consistently maintain a good defense, right? Because a lot of it's dictated by offense. There's a lot that goes into it. But the point being is that turning a defense around is a lot easier than turning an offense around, and getting the players that you need to go from the 32nd worst defense to the, what we've talked about, like top 15, top 10, you don't have to go that far, and you have talent on this defense. You kind of just need to add a couple more pieces and then just kind of reorganize the structure around it. And we've seen it happen before, that these defenses go from really bad to really good quickly just by kind of changing the angles, changing the way that they're attacking, how they're playing in structure. It happens.
And the opposite is true for it as well. Like you can go from absolutely really good to really bad. Like look at the Ravens last year. They were I think they were number 1 or number 2 DVOA defense in 2024. You get a couple injuries, and now they're actually the worst defense in the league. It's hard to believe, but they're giving up more points per game than Dallas. This is why I think like long-term team building, it makes more sense to invest in your offense from like a money standpoint, but be young and cheap on defense. And maybe that's what the Cowboys are ultimately going to stumble into in the post Micah Parsons era.
Yeah, look, I mean, ultimately you're going to have to make chicken salad out of chicken feathers, as they don't say, but as I won't say on air. And I think that's what this situation is with the Micah Parsons deal. Like we're in the situation we're in. We have the assets. Don't further screw with this. Like this, whether we like it or not, presents a very clear timeline for this team. Lean into it, focus on that timeline. And that doesn't mean you give up for this year.
No,
you just don't risk the future for trying to get a season that's kind of already tilting back and forth when you have things lined up pretty nicely for you in 2026.
All right, let's talk about some short-term fixes the Cowboys can make on defense right now. They're not going to spend a bunch of draft capital to improve this defense. How do they clean things up so they're not atrocious? We will get to that next.
I'm Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos, and this episode is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. This is Peloton's most advanced equipment yet, giving you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or you're cross-training with your favorite instructors like Alex Toussaint. It's training reimagined to make your workout more personal. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with features that help you plan, stay motivated, and hit peak performance. You can let yourself run, lift, flex, and go, while Peloton handles all the rest. Plus, Peloton IQ provides real-time strength coaching, tracking your progress and suggesting weights that challenge you so you can get stronger. Plus, the new movement tracking camera, it counts your reps and corrects your form in real time, making sure every rep is safer and smarter. So let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Just pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love FanDuel because it gives you so many different ways to play. Like, I love future bets. Like, right now, if the Cowboys weren't so bad on defense, I would be betting on Dak Prescott to win the NFL MVP award. He's been that great. I also like that you can go bet on Rookie of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year, which Dak might win, and so many other great things. You can also do same-game parlays, money line parlays, and it's all available on FanDuel. It makes watching football even more exciting when you got a little something riding on the action. And whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Landon, let's get to some more Twitter questions. And this is a good one from Blitzy. He wants to know, what would you do this year to fix the Cowboys defense to try to give them some chance?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing you can really do at this point is, again, try to help the personnel that you have on the field by playing, a defense that they're more comfortable with. I think that we've talked about it. It means a little bit more man coverage. I actually haven't looked at the numbers again this week, but it did feel like it was a similar amount of man coverage than we saw last week, but not really an increase. But I need to go check that. And I think the other thing is personnel, that changes in personnel that you can make. I mean, it feels like the Cowboys have kind of shuffled in all the linebackers that they've got. And I know that everyone's calling for Murray to get off the field a little bit more, but it's not like the guys behind him have been that much better. Right. No. And so I do think that, James Houston should continue to get more snaps. It feels like he didn't get an increase in snaps last week in the way he should have. I do feel like maybe you do need to continue to play Leafau more in the Mike spot instead of Murray. But Leafau himself has also been kind of up and down, as we've talked about. But that also points to some of the scheme stuff. I mean, Marcus, all throughout the offseason, you and I talked about how Eberflus was this linebacker guru. And it's crazy to me that the position that seems to be, out of all of these, the one that's struggling the most to me is the linebacker position. None of these guys seem to be capable of doing it. Even Sanborn, who we felt like would be serviceable based on what we saw at training camp, was awful when he was playing. So I just feel like it's extremely frustrating when you thought that you had at least a floor to this linebacker core, and it just doesn't feel like you do. So I don't know. You're hoping for Overshow to come back, but I think you still kind of have to also, on top of that, continue to rotate these linebackers a little bit and see, if you could find something that's better than Kenneth Murray, because he's just been awful.
At the same time, I almost want them to stop rotating. Like I think they're playing so many different Let's go through the snap counts right now. You've got Kenneth Murray at 413 snaps, Maris Leafau at 98 snaps, Damone Clark at 77 snaps, Shamar James at 144 snaps, and Jack Sanborn at 229 snaps. That's 5 linebackers who have played at least 75 defensive snaps. And only one of them has been injured. It's not like all of these guys have been coming in and out of the lineup because of injuries. Like they're trying to throw stuff.
They're reaching.
The wall. Yeah, reaching.
Exactly.
So at I agree. They need to make a change. But at some point, you need to just stick with 2 or 3 guys and just roll with them and let them kind of figure things out. Because the problem is when you're rotating all these guys in, there's no rhythm. There's no pace in the game. The guys can't get comfortable. Figure out who your two best guys are and just go from there.
Yeah, and I think I think it's easier said than done, is what the coaches staff would tell you, because I think they've tried to figure out who the best is, and I think it's been mostly a week to week proposition, and that's frustrating, right? And that makes it more difficult. So, yeah, I mean,
who would you put right now if the coaches came to you and say, okay, who are our best two linebackers? Who would you say?
I think that I would still continue to rotate them a little bit, but I think if you're asking me to play them full time, I probably would lean into youth, right? I'd play Shamar James and I'd play Leofau at Mike, right? I just think until Overshown comes back, and then I think I would go with Leofau and Overshown in my opinion.
And the other part of that is like Kenneth Murray and Jack Sanborn are on 1-year deals, and Damone Clark's on the last year of his contract. So if you're going to suck, you might as well be young and suck, right? Like at least put the guys in there that even if they're not starters in 2026, can get some experience to be better backups than what you have this year.
Well, yeah. I mean, all the guys that the issue with them is they don't have enough experience. Like, there's no excuse not to play those guys at this point, right? Like we the floor is already fallen out. Like, if they make mistakes, as long as they're learning and you're going to get better, then at least something good will come out of it. But as of right now, you're stinking with a bunch of veterans on 1-year deals. Like, you're not even getting any benefit of these empty calorie snaps that they're playing. Go at least grow as a young defense. Put your young guys out there, and if you stink, at least it's a learning experience. And again, tracking towards a next year where those guys will be better football players for having played those snaps.
And in the same vein, I want to talk about the edge rushers, because it's the same problem. They've been rotating so many of these guys. Listen to the snap counts. It's James Houston, who is your highest graded rusher, at least according to Pro Football Focus. He's got the most sacks for you right now. He's got 100 defensive snaps. Dante Fowler at 164. Donovan Ezeraku at 198. You've got Marshawn Nealon at 126. Your snap leader by a wide margin is Sam Williams at 216. You signed Jadeveon Clowney a couple weeks ago, and he's only got 70 defensive snaps. I understand that Matt Eberflus comes from the school of like waves of pass rushers. I think at some point they need to shorten this rotation down to like 4 names, and it's these 2 starters, these 2 backups, and go from there. Let these guys get some more snaps.
I tend to think that I agree with you, and I tend to think that they probably agree with you at this point. But I think that, again, they're struggling to find who the best defensive ends are. I think James Houston is clearly the best pass rusher. I think we know that at this point. But the problem is he's at 245 pounds. Like, it's tough to play on every down and tough to play every snap. But I think Ezeraku is, again, similar situation. You feel good that Ezeraku is probably your second or third consistent best pass rusher, but how confident are you that you can play him on a regular basis? And that's the thing. It's even with like Sam Williams. Go watch the tape, all y'all. Sam Williams is the guy that's like a game wrecker in some ways, but that works both ways. I mean, he's the only player on this defensive line with real juice, it feels like, but he's also getting blocked out of a play by a wide receiver, and he's running himself way out of a play. So
I'm at the point with him. It's just not worth. Yes, he gives you the juice, but it's just not worth the squeeze right now, because there's just so many snaps where he's the guy messing up. So I understand the concerns about having 3 sub 250 pound edges out there. Maybe you've got those 3 guys, and let's say it's Jadeveon Clowney, and maybe you just have to put more guys in the box on first and second down. That's okay, because you're going to get some guys that can generate more pass rush on some of those early downs if they decide to throw the ball over the top on you. It's just too many guys out there, and I just think that they have no identity at all on defense.
I think ultimately what I was pointing to was that if you solve one problem, like taking Sam Williams snaps out of it, then you cause another problem with this group, right? Because now you don't have enough juice. Like, I think it's a real give and take. And I think that's the problem that they're at, right? Is that it's like, there isn't one of these guys that is like the solution. I think if there was, we would have found it by now. And that's where the Cowboys are right now.
So just to answer your question, I think shorter the rotation a little bit, play a little bit more man coverage, because I think The thing is these guys are getting lost in zone coverage so much that it kind of defeats the point of having a zone coverage, right? The idea for zone is to try to confuse quarterbacks, but when guys are running wide open, they're not being confused at all.
Yeah.
Those are some simple fixes. Well, simple for us to say. We'll see if they have any impact, but I think at this point, it's what you have to try.
Yeah, you got to play the youth and play fast and dumb and try to get smarter as the season goes along.
Yeah, it's really their only option. All right, let's talk about the playoffs, Landon. Playoffs. After all that discussion about how bad the defense is, do the Cowboys still have a realistic chance of making the postseason? We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by GameTime. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle, and it's frustrating between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at the checkout. It's all incredibly frustrating, but that's why I use GameTime, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. GameTime is fast, easy, and backed by the GameTime guarantee. You'll always get authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all the fees are included. So the price that you see is the price that you pay. I can't tell you how nice that feature is, not having to worry about all these little ticket fees and whatever it is. What you see is what you pay. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that is promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go download GameTime today. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL podcast. 2 shows every single day. One in the morning with Tyler Rowland, one in the afternoon with Tony Wiggins, available wherever you get your podcasts. What a wild AFC South those guys are covering right now. But
those guys are on the opposite ends of the spectrum right now of where their teams are. Jeez.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the playoffs. We had multiple questions about, do the Cowboys actually have a realistic chance? We should mention Washington lost to Chicago on Monday Night Football. And it does seem like that changes the angles a little bit here. It makes this game against the Commanders a pretty big one.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's crazy. Like, it feels like there's just no dominant great team. And I mean, it feels like there's some teams that are trying to get it started, that are trying to get there. But it feels, especially the NFC, there's several, in it teams. There's just a bunch, right? It feels like almost the whole conference is still kind of hanging around. And that game kind of showed it. Like, I think, the Washington was marching into that score that last touchdown, and Jane Daniels just plumb dropped the ball and Chicago recovers it. So, and I think it's a great example of, it's a great metaphor really for these seasons writ large, right? Like, it's just what we talk about all the time. The ball bounces weird, things go wrong. We talked about it just the other day about the Eagles needing to lose, what was it, 6 games in the 2023 season or something?
Yeah,
they did. And so, I think, the playoffs, is it still possible? Absolutely, it's still possible. Like, I mean, we get down on it. We get upset about the paths where the teams are. The odds don't look good at certain points, but are they still in it in going into week 7, in which the NFC doesn't seem to have any kind of runaway favorite? Absolutely, they're still in it at this point. Anything can happen, especially with injuries. The problem is how they're playing. Right. And do you feel like, can they improve to where they need to be for it to make a difference? That's where we have our concerns. At least, I don't want to speak for you, but that's where I have my concerns. The issue is not a mathematical, can enough chaos happen for the Cowboys to sneak in? Absolutely. If the Cowboys take care of their side of the business, they can make the playoffs, and we'll see what happens. But it's how they're playing that has me concerned, and whether they're going to achieve that goal and what they do, even if they do make the playoffs.
It's really how they're playing on one side of the ball, because the offense
to be clear,
the offense is absolutely playoff caliber.
Yeah.
It's just, can you Can you luck into your defense being better? I mean, yeah, you can. Actually, you can luck into defense being better, a lot better than you can luck in your offense being better, right? Because you can get tip passes at the line of scrimmage that result in interceptions, or people fumbling the ball at the goal line, which has happened several times this year.
Several hours ago.
Yeah, exactly. So that part of it can happen, but it's going to be really hard to be excited about this team unless we see big improvement on defense. But what's crazy, it's not like this defense needs to be a top 10 unit the rest of the way for the Cowboys to be like a playoff contender. If they got to like 23rd, like honestly, I can't wait to go back at the end of the season and be like, hey, if the Cowboys defense just allowed 27 points per game, their record would have been this, right? Hopefully things can change over the next 3 months, and maybe they'll give themselves a chance down the stretch.
Yeah. And again, I think there's two separate things, two separate, very different goals, right? Making the playoffs and then doing something in the playoffs, right? Because, and I think that's where it feels very unlikely that the Cowboys make the playoffs and have the kind of team that really makes noise, just because there doesn't feel like there's enough on defense to get there right now. Maybe something changes and maybe the odds change, but like that's the difference between just having to be like the 20 through 15th best defense and having to be a top 10 defense, right? And I don't know if the Cowboys get there.
I just want to see improvement by some young players like Donovan Ezraku, who continues to step up. Like that's encouraging for me. Yeah. I want to see this team just play better. I want to see the coaching staff coach better, because I think Schottenheimer is going to be here for a while. And if this group can start to rally and play better football, even if that doesn't result in a playoff appearance or victory or whatever it is, I think that's more encouraging long-term than lucking into a 9-7-1 record and getting blown out in round one.
Yeah, if they win this game against the Commanders, though, they're statistically very much in this. So don't count them out for this season.
All right, that is it for today's show. Check out the channel on YouTube. Download the podcast wherever you get your podcast. Make sure that you follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosher, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.